Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of the Inkwell Gamers podcast. Today, we are going over Emerald in Rise of the Floodborn. We are going to be doing the set review, just like we have for Amethyst and Amber so far. But first, let's get to the grading scale. How do we grade these cards, Dana?
All right, so we grade them on a scale of S being the best, then going down A, B, C, D. So S, you couldn't imagine cutting from your deck. You would play 4 of in every deck with this color. Very high power level, something like Rapunzel gifted with healing from the first set. Then you have A, which consists of one of the best cards in that color, a high power level. Will play in most decks. There might be a few archetypes that might not want it, or at least all 4, depending on the strategy of that particular deck, like Stitch Rockstar. It could also be the best cards that cause you to build around it, something like Big Elsa. Then we have B, which consists of solid role players. It could be 4 in a lot of decks just due to their ink ability and ink costs, but maybe not necessarily super high power. Something like Minnie Mouse, always classy. Or B could also be cards that are a higher power level, that are role players, but maybe not inkable or expensive, so it would be hard to play in some archetypes, or maybe a lot of copies of, something like Ursula Power Hungry. And then we have C, which will take very specific decks to make playable, but could have niche applications, like Dinglehopper. And then lastly, we have D, which is mostly unplayable cards, ones like Healing Glow. So with that being said, are you ready to jump in, Dalton?
Dana, let's do this. This is going to be a lot of fun because this is your favorite color.
It's my favorite color. Yeah. So I'm really excited about it. A lot of cards in here that I already want to incorporate into my deck. So it'll be fun.
Absolutely. Why don't you start us off?
All right. So the first card that we have is Arthur Trained Swordsman. This is an inkable 4-drop, a 4/3, quests for 2. And that's it. So I graded Arthur at a B. Honestly, I think the card's stat line and questing capabilities are pretty standard for its ink cost and ink ability. There aren't other 4-drops that are exactly like this one, but they might vary just based on like one strength or willpower is swapped, or both stats are the same and maybe just quests for one. Whatever. Nonetheless, I just think it's pretty standard, so I just gave it a B. Nothing super impressive, but I could see this getting some play. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a C. It could be a D to me just because I don't think that one extra point of strength is going to make it any better than the Emerald Hans that we have, just because he quests for one more. And that is mostly what Emerald is about, is just racking up lore as fast as possible. So I'd rather just have the green Hans.
Gotcha.
Alright, so next we have a really exciting card. We have Beast Relentless. It is an inkable 6-cost character that has a 4/5, quest for 2, and it has the ability Second Wind. Whenever an opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Beast it's in the running for what could be one of the most powerful or best cards in the set, in my opinion. I'm probably going to give it an A because I think you have to make your deck specific towards it. Mm-hmm. You really have to build around it. But I think if you can do that with a lot of really strong steel cards, then he'll be really powerful. He can sing Grab Your Swords and then Quest because dealing that damage readies him. And then maybe you run out of damage cards and you can just sing a whole new world with them, and then you have like a Fire the Cannons and another Grab Your Sword. So there's just a lot of powerful interactions that I think the Beast can do. The hardest part for him is just going to be sticking around on the board the turn you play him, because there is just so much removal in the format. I'm not sure how often he'll be around, but if someone can figure this deck out, and I'm going to be trying to, it will be very strong.
I went in pretty strong. I just went for the gusto and gave him an S. I think it's going to see a lot of play in different types of decks. You have a deck that would be paired with steel, like you described. I could see it being paired also with like an Amber healing deck and just keep using him over and over and maybe using some of the healing cards in that and get a couple of challenges out of him as well. Like, I don't know. I could see him in a couple different decks. And so because of that, I gave him an S.
Yeah, something that also works really well with him is the White Rabbit's Pocket Watch. Just giving him the ability to challenge the turn he comes into play. So you can challenge something, then ready him and kind of keep him safe. So he has that immediate impact on the board that you don't normally get. Or he can just challenge multiple things down because he's reasonably statted. I think he's going to be really strong eventually, but I just don't see him in every deck.
All right, next we have Bell Bookworm. It is a uninkable 3-drop, a 2/4, quests for 1, and has the ability use your imagination. While an opponent has no cards in their hand, this character gets +2 lore. I gave this a grade with a contingency.
Okay.
So this is hard because I know that we're trying to grade on cards standalone, but we also have to take into consideration what they would be getting used for if they were to be getting played. On her own, I think it would be a C or a D because I just feel like her ability, you would have to put it in a very specific deck, like a discard deck, to be able to use her ability. However, because of the next card we're going to talk about, I think that would be the only reason why this card would be getting played, is to shift the next one, that the Archer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what grade are you going to give it?
I gave it a B just because I know that I would personally have to put her in my deck because I really want to play Archer.
Yeah, I am going to give this one a D. I don't really think the payoff is there. It's kind of situational. I think Belle Hidden Archer is going to be really strong just by herself. And this being uninkable means it's just kind of clunky. It doesn't really have a great stat line. Doesn't affect the board in a meaningful way. So yeah, I wouldn't even play with Belle Archer, which is what we're going to talk about next. Belle is a 5-cost uninkable 3/3 with shift 3. It quests for 3 and it has Thorny Arrows. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging character's player discards all the cards in their hand. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a really powerful line of text. So the one issue that I have with Belle is that they just make all the good Emerald cards uninkable, it seems like.
Yeah.
So you can't put a lot of them into your deck. Not only that, but there's like 10 different options for 5-cost inkable cards.
Yeah.
And
you already have Cusco at a 5-drop that's uninkable.
Yeah, and you already have Mad Hatter. There's going to be 3 or 4 more that we talk about later. So, and a lot of those are inkable, so that kind of makes it tough on Belle, but I still think that her ability is going to be really powerful. It kind of falls off into the late game a little bit when your opponent doesn't really have cards in their hand. Mm-hmm. But if you can play this on turn 5, or heck, maybe you are Sapphire and you can play it on turn 4, then you start to have that ability has a really big impact.
Mm-hmm. S. I gave her an S.
A, by the way. A.
Oh, A for you?
Yeah.
S for me. I am so excited to get my hands on this card. And we've talked time and time again about how Emerald tends to have characters, they're good ones, with this de-incentivization when challenging them, like Cusco and like Cheshire. And this falls right in line with it as well. And I will definitely be putting 4 of these in my deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Really powerful card. I'm kind of nervous to play against it, to be honest.
You should be. Because I'd be playing you.
I know. That's right.
All right, next we have Bucky Squirrel Squeak Tutor.
Squeakity squeaketh.
How did I know you were going to be doing that?
I don't know. It's just so good.
Oh, God. An inkable 2-drop, a 1/1, quests for 1, has Ward, and also Squeak. Whenever you play Floodborn character, each opponent chooses and discards a card. What you got for me?
Huh. I don't know. This one I have a hard time with. So it's going to be very reminiscent of what an enchantment would look like in Magic, where it just kind of sits there. You're almost never going to quest with it unless like you're getting to 20 that turn, because it's just so flimsy. It's going to get challenged by literally everything. Mm-hmm. So it's just going to kind of sit there. And we need multiple cheaper Floodborn characters in order for this to really work. Now we do have a couple good ones in Flynn and Bell Hidden Archer, so I don't know. I'm gonna give it. Oh gosh, I'm struggling. I'm gonna give it an A.
Wow.
I know. I think that because it has ward, that's just going to make it very annoying for a lot of your opponents to deal with. And if you can get them to discard 2 or 3 cards, then that's worth your 2 ink, I think.
So you're thinking to play this card and literally never quest with it or challenge, obviously, and it just sits there for its ability of the Floodborn character.
Yep. It's just going to sit there. You're going to play Flynn Rider on, maybe you shift it on turn 3 and they discard a card. Or you just play it on turn 4, they discard a card. You play Bell Hidden Archer on turn 5, they discard another card. Yeah, I think that, or maybe you shift the Cheshire Cat at some point as well. I think that in combination with a lot of the other discard tools this color has, can really add up and be kind of powerful. That being said, I am giving it an A, but I do think you have to build around it and, make your deck specific to this. So, I don't know. It's tough.
Well, I was opposite. I gave this a C. Like, yeah, it has ward, but there are other cards that see play that work around ward when it has the whole area of effect. Like, people are gonna play Tink, and Tink's gonna come out and it's gonna be gone. Or grab your sword, it's gonna be gone. And plus, I think you would need, obviously, the Floodborn characters in your deck for this to even... I just don't see that there are enough Floodborn characters for you to really reap the benefit of him. So, I don't know. That's why I gave him a C.
Well, in each 2 color combination, I think there's 12 Floodborn characters now. So you have a lot of different options throughout the different color combinations, and yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm willing to be wrong on this one. I just think there are just some decks that Ruby Amethyst Control, for example, they can literally never get this card off the board until turn 7, and by that time you've made them discard multiple cards, and they might not even have the ink to cast be prepared, and that could be really annoying. There are some decks that are just going to have a really hard time dealing with it, I think.
I guess I didn't think about it like that.
Steel's the exception, right? Steel's the one with Grab Your Swords and Tinkerbell, but most other higher-end control decks that aren't Steel, I think, just aren't going to have a way to interact with it.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't honestly think about your point of view until you presented it, so that makes sense. I might change my mind. I'll at least, I know you have it at an A. I might move mine up to a B. I still feel like it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
I still feel like you have to have a sufficient amount of good Floodborn characters that you're playing, but I could now see its benefit, sure.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from too. It could just be a dud, That's
only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Next one, we have Cheshire Cat, Always Grinning. It is a 2-drop inkable character that quests for 1 and is a 3/2. It's a solid B, reasonable stats, quest for 1. It just is what it is.
Same for me, solid B, fine stat line. Honestly, would play it for the Shift Cheshire that we're getting ready to talk about. So
yeah, why don't you talk about it?
Alrighty. So Cheshire Cat from the Shadows, an inkable 8-drop. 5/6, quests for 2, shifts for 5, has evasive, and you can exert it to banish chosen damaged character. What do you have this one at?
I'm going to say a B. I just don't know how many of these you can actually play. I think it is really powerful. And if you are playing like a steel deck that has Beast in it and a lot of those area of effect with Tinkerbell and Grab Your Swords, then this thing can just kind of sit on the board and just start picking off your opponent's characters. That's really strong. And if there's nothing that's that threatening to you, it's just a big body that's evasive and quests for 2 every turn. So I think this one's really powerful.
I gave it a B as well because I think it's powerful as well. I wouldn't necessarily say I'd build my deck around this one enough to give it an A or an S. But yeah, I definitely will try to figure out a way to put this one in.
Yeah, if like you have the Beast deck put together, I think this one fits right in there just as a complementary threat that, can kind of help keep your opponent's board clear.
For sure. All right, next we have Daisy Duck, Secret Agent, an inkable 4-drop, 2/3, quests for 2, and has Thwart. Whenever this character quests, each opponent chooses and discards a card. First look at her, I was like, oh, she's an A. But in all reality, I think a stat line of 2/3 isn't really big enough to last more than a turn or two, and may or may not make a favorable trade to whoever's challenging it. And especially because for that stat line and only being a 4-drop, I don't know. I do like how she has that de-incentivization though, again, but I think it's slightly worse than like Amber's Prince Philip, and that didn't really get a whole lot of attention in the first set. Plus, he's a 3/3 and she's a 2/3, and his ability does seem more powerful than hers. So, I don't know. I might even, as I talk myself through it, I might drop it down to a C, but I don't know. What about you?
So I think I'm going to give her an A, and the reason being is that Emerald just does not have any, and this is actually one of the issues with, not really an issue, but just a recurring thing in Lorcana, is that there aren't a lot of really powerful 4-cost characters besides Rapunzel. And this is a 4-cost character, because I feel like what always happened whenever I watched you play is that most of the time on turn 4, you were still just playing one of your million different 3-drop characters.
Or Jafar.
But, I mean...
Other than him, I didn't have any.
It's like you had Tink and Jafar. Jafar didn't necessarily always fit the game plan. I think this one is better at fitting the game plan just because it quests for one more. And there are definitely a couple discard synergies in this set and in this color that we'll talk about that make it really powerful. If you ever get a second quest out of this thing, then you're probably going to run away with the game, just because as soon as you start taking away that many resources with one card, it kind of starts adding up to where you'll be able to get more resources from your opponent just because they're so limited on options. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of snowballing in that way. But yeah, so I think this one's a pretty good 4-cost character.
Okay.
Yeah, so next we have Donald Duck, Perfect Gentleman. It is an inkable 4-cost character. It is a 2/5. He quests for 2, has Shift 3, and has Allow Me. At the start of your turn, each player may draw a card. Dana, what did you give Donnie?
So I gave him a B. I think although there is currently only one cheaper Donald character, that's in another color for where you'd be able to shift him onto. That's in another color. So that makes it a little bit more challenging, because if you want to see him earlier, you would have to be limited to that combination. But I think his card draw ability is enticing enough to consider just playing him anyway. What did you give him?
I'm going to give him a B too. I think he's pretty good. So in Magic, the biggest issue with this kind of symmetrical effect is that traditionally each player has drawn a card at the end of your turn, so you were the last player to get to use the card initially. Here, you both draw cards at the same time at the beginning of your turn, and since it's your turn, you get to use that card. And I think that could combo really well with cards like Daisy Duck, just because you're keeping your opponent's options limited still, right? Like, you go up a card, but you're questing, making them discard a card, so they still don't have as many options. That being said, I'm still just going to give them a B. I don't know if the discard deck's going to be good, and I'm not even, I think this might be just the one player in that deck. The other thing about Emerald is that they're probably the best color at turning cards into lore. So if you just have more cards than your opponent, you are more or if you're just drawing a lot more cards, you're more likely to get to 20 lore faster than your opponent, just because your cards are generally better at questing. Mm-hmm. So that's something to think about too.
All right, next we have Donald Duck, Sleepwalker, an inkable 3-drop, 0/5, quests for 1, and has Startled Awake. Whenever you play an action, this character gets +2 strength this turn. I gave him a D.
Same. We can probably move on.
All right. All right.
Yeah, he's not very good.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with this Donald Duck is that on your opponent's turn, he's just a 0/5, can't defend himself very well. So
And it's not like Cheshire Cat, where even though Cheshire Cat has 0 strength, it still has the ability that when it gets banished, it still banishes. Like, you're not making a favorable trade with this one. So,
yeah, this one's just not very good.
yeah.
All right, so next we have Dr. Facilier Fortune Teller. He's a 7-cost inkable, a 4/4. He quests for 3, has evasive, and You're in My World. Whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't quest during their next turn. I actually really like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one an A. I think it's just so much better than what Mother Gothel was trying to be.
Mm-hmm.
It quests for 3, so it quests for a lot. It's evasive, so it's hard to deal with. It can challenge characters because it's a 4/4. It's inkable, so it has that flexibility that a lot of the other Emerald cards don't have. And you can get some control over what your opponent's doing through its ability. And the great thing about that is, like, they can't quest, but they can't challenge this thing either because he's evasive. So their character just has to do nothing.
Mm-hmm. So I also gave him an A. Like you said, he's better than Mother Gothel. I didn't even play Mother Gothel in my deck. I also slightly compared him to like Genie on the Job, because in my head Genie on the Job is evasive as well, even though it's a 6 cost, obviously. But like, yeah, Genie's bouncing ability is strong, but sometimes, as we've seen, there are sometimes characters where they have an ability that enters upon play, so I hesitated like wanting to bounce those anyway. Plus you have Mother Knows Best. I think not allowing opponents to quest the next turn is strong to where I might consider taking Genie out to possibly add this card in instead. Plus, in the previous set, I played Amethyst with Emerald, and I put Elsa in my deck for a similar reason of, like, yeah, she exerted characters and they couldn't unexert, but the whole point was that they couldn't really, you're making them not be able to do anything. And he kind of fills that role as well, especially because I'm considering to abandon Amethyst and maybe try a different color. This would be kind of like a nice, I don't know, like a nice little mix, a little flavor of all of the cards I played and I did like. I don't know. Yeah, but A.
Yeah, his biggest challenge is going to be the same thing as the Beast, in that he doesn't do anything when he comes into play. He's just a giant threat. But I think that him being inkable and having that versatility might make him a little more popular than Genie, maybe.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Alright, next we have Enchantress. Unexpected Judge is a 2-cost inkable character, a 1/1 that quests for 2, and it has true form. While being challenged, this character gets +2 strength. I gave this one an A. Mm-hmm. I think she's really good. Like, the biggest issue with something like Flynn Rider is that it doesn't trade with anything on turn 2, or hardly ever.
Right.
So you just end up behind on board. Whereas this will trade with most cheap characters that challenge into it. You're still getting the same amount of lore as with Flynn Rider. I think it's just an upgrade over that card so much.
Yeah, for sure. I'm right there with you. I gave her an A as well. I kind of forgot about Flynn for a hot minute. I was thinking that she was kind of up there with like the Lilo and Pinocchio Star Attraction, but is just stronger when being challenged because, like you said, she can make favorable trades with those 2/2s or the 1/3s, where it's not just the card dying, but you getting rid of that as well. So, yeah, I gave it an A.
Yeah, that's a really strong one. Really strong 2-drop. Very excited for that one.
Yeah.
For you.
Well, thank you. All right, next we have Flynn Rider, Confident Vagabond, an inkable 1-drop, 1/3, quests for 1, vanilla. I gave this one a B. It's just an Emerald Olaf, in my opinion. So
Yep. It's a B. It has some upside over Olaf because the next card we're talking about, though. Go ahead.
All right. Flynn Rider, his own biggest fan. An uninkable 4-drop, 2/3, quests for 4, shifts for 2, evasive, and has one last big score. This character gets -1 lore for each card in your opponent's hands. I might be wrong on this, but I gave it like a CD. I think it would need a discard deck to make this character playable. Otherwise, you're putting out a 2/3 character on turn 4 or shift on turn 2 or whatever, but can't do anything. So unless it has that triggered ability. So I gave it like a CD.
All right, yeah, I'm going to give this one an A. I think it is strong enough that if you were to build a deck around it, it would be very good. I can definitely see playing like Amber. You shift this thing on turn 2, Sing Sudden, Chill, or whatever, make them discard a card. Next turn you play Prince John, which is another card we'll talk about here in a few minutes. And then on turn 4, you play You Have Forgotten Me. They discard 2 cards. They don't have very many resources left. And you can just start questing for 2, 3, and 4 very quickly. I think it is very powerful. I really wish they wouldn't print cards that make you actively really want to discard cards from your opponent's hand, just because I don't think that's necessarily the best experience. But here we are.
Interesting.
I do think that, honestly, I could see you wanting to play this card at some point as an Emerald card. Because I think it might be that good. It also might not be, but I think it might be. Alright, next one. We have Gaston, Scheming Suitor. Is a 2-cost thinkable 1/3. Quest for 1, it has, yes, I'm intimidating. Whenever one or more opponents have no cards in their hand, this character gets +3 strength. I am going to give this one a D.
I gave it a C. Probably should give it a D. I just think its ability is just too niche for me.
Yeah, its stats aren't there. And then even when you have completed your quest of making your opponent have no cards in hand, the payoff isn't really there either. So I don't like it. Alright, next we have Little John, Loyal Fan. He's a 6-cost thinkable, 6/6, quest for 2, and that's it. I think he is a C or a D. And, we did see... What was it, Kronk? He got a little bit of play in steel decks as maybe you're a 2 or 3 of sometimes. But now that we have a second set added, I just think cards like that are just not going to be powerful enough. And I don't see ever playing this over the Beast if you have access to that card. And I think that's the biggest issue with it. The Beast is just significantly more powerful. So yeah, I think just looking at the 2 cards, it's just a D.
So I gave it a C. I think it's a big boy. Although it's vanilla, it at least trades with Maui, which I know is a huge thing that you always preached, is did it survive the Maui test? It trades with it and gets it off the board, so you at least have that. But even if you don't see Maui, there aren't very many other characters that are powerful like Maui that would really scare me to play this card. So I think you could get away with a couple of questing with it, or just using it to maybe get rid of your opponent's threat that might not have as strong of a strength, but maybe a big booty. So
yeah, it is definitely a big body. So if you're playing something like Rapunzel, that might make this more appealing.
And in all reality, whenever I played against the Steel Amber decks, I just kept telling myself, like, I just wish I had something that could get rid of that Rapunzel completely, because I don't want to leave anything half damaged when playing against them, obviously, because it's a healing deck. So, all right, next we have Lucifer Cunning Cat, an uninkable 5-drop, a 2/2, quest for 2, and has Mouse Catcher. Whenever you play this character, each opponent chooses and discards either 2 cards or 1 action card. What did you give the kitty cat?
I'm going to give this one an A. So I think that it is possible this card is better than Belle. It has the immediate impact when it comes into play. You're going to get 2 characters, or maybe you get their Be Prepared or their Let It Go, whatever their action they have is, right? So, they do have the choice, but you're still getting a card at least. It is a little small, and it's not inkable, which, again, is the issue with Emerald cards, but it's still quests for a couple. I think it's going to give Bell a run for its money because its effect is immediate.
I graded this a little conservatively. I gave it a B. I do think it's a good card, but I think for it being a 5 cost and inkable when we already have a lot of good 5 costs in Emerald, it's a little too squishy for me being a 2/2.
And a lot of 5 cost uninkables at that. So
Right. But anytime you can make yourself have a card advantage over your opponent, I think that that's obviously something to consider putting into your deck. And think about if this was paired with Amethyst and the new bounce cards, and you just like do the ability and then put down one of the Amethyst ones that bring it back or whatever. Have you swap it? Yeah. It would, I mean, if put into that deck, I would hold that to an A or an S, obviously. But yeah, I am probably should have graded it higher than a B, but I think I was a little...
There's so much competition for
There's
it.
a lot of competition for it, and to be honest, I was a little worried that if I graded too many Emerald cards high, that you would be like, Dana, you're being biased.
You have a little bit of a bias. No.
All right,
so next we have Pain. Underworld Imp is a 2 cost and inkable. 1/4 that quests for 1 with the ability coming your whatever that word is, I don't know. What is it, Dana?
I think he says it like lugubriousness.
Lugubriousness. Yeah, that seems like a word. Either way, he, while this character has 5 or more strength, he gets +2 lore. I gave this one a D.
I was nice and I gave it a C, but it probably should be a D. I think this card is obviously only good with Panic, just because, I mean, we'll get into him next, but yeah, it's definitely, it's not playable unless you're playing the other one.
The big issue with it is that when it has 5 strength, like, what's the point of its ability? You're just questing, and then its strength doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But then if you challenge when it does have 5 strength, then its ability doesn't do anything. So it really doesn't even make sense, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, it just does not work with itself, and I hate it. Next, we have Panic. The other Underworld Imp is an uninkable 3 cost character. It is a 2/3 quest for 2, and it has I Can Handle It. When you play this character, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. If the chosen character is named Pain, he gets +4 instead. So the combo's there, but unfortunately, Pain is bad.
Right. I gave Panic a B. I think, obviously, although this card works with Pain, I think when you compare the two, it could stand alone by itself better. Similar to like how we saw Flotsam and Jetsam in set 1, and really just one was better than the other. So I think that it's a similar situation that we have going on here.
Yep, definitely think it's the better of the two. We saw how good Meg's ability could be, and this is that on a better body, better sizing, quest for more, better standalone card. The only issue is that it's not inkable, but, you know, I still think it's going to see some play, and probably 1 or 2 numbers. I'll give it a B.
All right, next we have Pete Bad Guy.
I'm a bad guy.
Why? Why? Inkable 5-drop, 3/4, quests for 2, has ward, and has 2 abilities. First one is Take That. Whenever you play an action, this character gets +2 strength this turn. And who's next? While this character has 7 strength or more, he gets +2 lore. I gave this one a B. I think this card is similar to Goofy Daredevil to me because they're both the same cost, inkability, stat line, quests for 2. But I think Pete's ward might come into use more with the set 2 cards coming out, because I feel like there are more interactions that he could avoid with his ward opposed to like if he were to have had evasive.
Yeah, I am going to give this a B as well. There could be a really sweet action deck with Pete and the new Minnie Mouse Diver that's in Ruby, but it's the same thing with Pain. Like, you're making his strength better, but then you're not taking advantage of that in the way that like 7 strength matters. Mm-hmm. So you're not challenging with it, and if you are challenging with it, then You're just not getting the lore from it. So there's some tension there. I mean, it can be really powerful. I'm just not sure it will be. I'm going to give it a. You know what? I'm going to give it a C. Alright, next we have Prince John, Greediest of All. It is an uninkable 3-cost character, a 1-2, quest for 2, has ward, and it has I sentence you. Whenever your opponent discards one or more cards, you may draw a card for each card discarded. What do you think, Dana?
I struggled with this one just because for an uninkable 3-cost, he'd just die to grab your sword. I could see him being used in certain deck archetypes, though. Obviously, one that is built around being like a discard archetype. But I gave him in like a BC because I know that you probably think he's good. Well, actually, before we argue a little bit, what grade did you give?
I'm going to give him an A. I think he is probably the reason to play the discard deck. Again, just like Bucky, he's like an enchantment to me. Yeah, he's just going to sit and play. The next turn, you follow this up with You Have Forgotten Me. Your opponent discards 2 cards and you draw 2 cards. That is such a big swing. And there are other cards besides You Have Forgotten Me that this works really well with. Sudden Chill, he can sing a song and do that. And then on top of that, he curves really well into... So if you go Bucky, Prince John, Flynn Rider, the new Flynn Rider, his own biggest fan, your opponent discards a card because you played a Floodborn, then you draw a card because of Prince John's ability. And then, I don't know, like, there's just so many good curving out options, and the fact that your opponent can't deal with it through normal means it's just going to be really annoying.
See, I feel like I approached this card differently than you. When I was going through, I was obviously looking at our grading sheet and comparing A to C. Like A, it might only fit into certain deck archetypes, but you build your deck around it, whereas C, it would only fit into certain deck archetypes, but maybe not, like, obviously one that you're building around. And I guess I considered this one to not be one that you build around, but would just fit into a certain archetype. So that's why I was leaning more towards the C. I feel like you made a very good case for it to be something that you do build around for, though. So since I was on the fence of B and C, I'll at least bump up to a B.
Yeah.
But I feel like I don't want to just be a bandwagoner.
No, I get you. Yeah, I think if you're going to play the discard deck, this is the reason why. And it just works incredibly well in multiples as well. You have 2 on board, then you're kind of just going crazy. And I think it's going to be a very annoying card just 'cause you just can't interact with it.
All right, next. Queen of Hearts, Quick Tempered. An uninkable 2-drop, 1-2, quests for 2, and has Royal Rage. When you play this character, deal 1 damage to chosen damaged opposing character. I gave her a C. I feel like there are other cards that we have already reviewed where it's interacting with characters that have damage already on them, and we didn't think that it was consistent enough to be good, and so I just put this one right into that category. So honestly, I should probably give her a D, but I think I was being nice because it's my favorite color, so I felt like I gotta be nice.
Gotta be nice, yeah. I'm also gonna give this one a D. They could have made her inkable, and she would be decent. They could have made her a 2-2, she would be decent. They could have made her ability deal 1 damage to any character, and she probably would have been really good in that case because she would pick off Lilos and Maleficent's Binder Times. But they just decided that they did not want this 2-drop to be too good, and I'm okay with that. But they tweaked it, so they made it too bad, I think. Yeah, I just don't see it. Too inconsistent. Next we have Ratigan, Criminal Mastermind. He is a 4-cost inkable, evasive 4-1 that quests for 2. What do you think?
I'm really sad because I expected Ratigan to have a better card than this. So I feel
the
like
art's sweet. Look at that.
the art is so beautiful. I feel like they just did him dirty on everything else, though. I struggled with this one just because he just has too squishy of a willpower. If you look at other 4-drop evasive characters, they all have better willpower than he does.
Tinkerbell, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he would die instantly to Big Tink. Like when she gets played on the board. I mean, it's that squishy. I don't know. I just, for being a 4 cost, I would expect that kind of squishiness from like a 1 or 2 drop, not a 4 cost.
Yeah, I mean, even the Emerald Tinkerbell from the first set
Right.
is a 2/3 that just survives a lot of stuff. So
Yeah.
survives grab your swords even. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a D. I don't think you'll ever play it over the Tinkerbell. It's just, see, this is one that would really benefit from having Ward, because then you can't fire the cannons you can't dragon fire it, Maleficent it, whatever. But because it's just so squishy, it's just gonna trade down with literally everything.
Yeah, it kind of makes me mad because he's such a cool villain, and this card is so sweet.
Yeah.
Sad. All right, next we have Ray, Easygoing Firefly.
What a hilarious looking Firefly.
Inkable 5-drop, 3/3, quests for 3, and has evasive. What did you give this?
So I'm going to give this one an A. I think it's really strong. It's going to be, because it's evasive and inkable, I think it has a lot of flexibility. It quests for 3, so it's going to be right up there with Kuzco, except for instead of them challenging Kuzco and getting rid of their character, they just won't be able to challenge this, so this might get 6 lore. I think it's really strong. It being inkable is really powerful for this card.
I gave it a B. I think I was a little harsh on it just because, I mean, he has fine stats for everything he's got going on, but I just think, like we said earlier, Emerald has a lot of powerful 5-cost characters, and I struggle seeing myself giving up a slot in my curve when I could have Cusco and Belle and Lucifer. Not saying I'd maybe play all 4 of those just because they're all uninkable and he's not, but I don't know. I would consider this in the right deck, but like I said, it has a lot of competition.
It does, yeah. And that's with every 5-cost card in this color, apparently, which is kind of unfortunate. I'm starting to think that, like, some Sapphire deck that plays 1 jump ahead and Mickey Mouse Detective, like, just playing all of these really powerful 5-cost cards a turn early, and because you have Mickey Mouse and 1 jump ahead, you don't necessarily need a bunch of inkables because they're gaining you ink anyway. Those 2 cards are gaining you ink anyway. That might mean that you can play a lot more of the uninkables and it just accelerates you a lot. So that's something that I might be looking into as well. Alright, next we have the Queen. Disguised Peddler is an uninkable 3-cost 2/3 with the ability A Perfect Disguise. You exert her to choose and discard a character card from your hand, and you gain lore equal to the discarded character's lore. I'm gonna give this a C tentatively. I recognize that this could go terribly wrong for me, because just if you can protect this thing and it just shoots out like brave little tailors and just domes you for 4 2 turns in a row, you could lose. But the fact that it doesn't quest by itself, and it's kind of a bag body, and like you're discarding cards, so you're losing that resource.
Right. You're not able to, like, if you were to play BLT, you can't quest multiple times with it. It's a one and done.
Yeah.
Like you're yeah.
Yeah, and then it's uninkable. I think it has a lot of things going against it. Again, this could prove to be a really powerful and good card, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I gave it a D. I just don't think it's very good, like, for the reasons that you all covered. I think if a character can't quest, it better have another ability that is powerful enough for me to still want to play it, like Maui. This card is just, by it being uninkable, small statted, its ability is just, I don't think, good enough for me to want to waste an uninkable slot on in a color that already has a bunch of good cards that are uninkable.
For sure.
So, I mean, and like I kind of interrupted you with during your turn, but if you were to just play a high questing character, you might be able to get more than just 1 quest out of that anyway. But with this one, you're just doing a one and done, and it seems like a waste of cards for me.
Yep, you could have Cheshire Cat quest with it, then they trade their character into it, you get 2 lore, you trade characters, and it's an inkable card, and that might just be better.
All right, down to our last two characters before we get into our actions and items. We have Tiana, True Princess, another 5-drop, inkable one though, 5/3, quest for 3, vanilla. What did you give this one?
I'm just gonna make this quick and say that I gave this one and the next one both D's. They're very similar cards. I don't think either are better than any of the other 5-cost characters that we've talked about. So I'm never going to play them.
I gave this one a B, C. Well, we can make it quick too. Gave this one a B, C. I don't think it's too bad. I'm just nervous about it being a little too squishy on the willpower side. I gave Verana, the next one, inkable 5-drop, 5/5, quest for 2. I gave this one a B only because it is exactly like Honey Wizard of Amethyst, which I also gave a B on. So I just wanted to keep it the same.
Yeah, I get you. All right, next. And again, I gave Verana a D as well. Same reason, too many 5-drops, just not as good as the other ones, I don't think. Next, we have Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. It is a 3-cost action song that is uninkable. It says, return chosen character of yours to your hand to play another chosen character with the same cost or less for free. So this is a really interesting one, and that can lead to some really powerful lines of play. And I think the more sets that are released and the more Floodborn characters that are released, the more powerful this one's going to become. I'm not sure that we have enough there yet to make it really, really strong, but I'm excited to brew with this one in the future.
So what'd you give it?
I'll
You got to give me a grade.
I know. I didn't want to though, just because.
I'm not letting you sneak by.
Right now, I think it's a C, but I realize that it could be an A in a year.
I gave it an A. I actually kind of like this one because I think it's a nice way to like quest or challenge and then play another one to the board immediately and do something with that one too, because that one doesn't have to dry. Plus, it's a song, so obviously you could sing it. It gives me the same vibes as the new Amethyst cards. And we've seen a couple of those in action, and they can be pretty annoying to deal with because they're just either challenging or questing with those, obviously bouncing, and then playing a whole nother one. So I already see the usefulness out of those, and I feel like this one kind of gives the same vibe. So that's why I gave it an A.
Yeah, I get you. What do you think, like, the best case scenario is for this card? Like, what's the most powerful thing you can do?
All right, so I am not going to take credit for this, but I saw someone put it online. So let's just say you're using this within the Amber deck. You play the 1-cost queen, then turn 2, you shift her for 2, and she's a 5-cost character. And then let's just say you get lucky and you sing this with that 5-cost character, and boom, you get Cusco on turn 2.
Cusco on turn 2. You think that's the? I mean that is powerful, right?
You would obviously have to be very lucky and have that in your starting hand or within your first draw or two. But things like that, like interactions with like that, I think could be pretty nasty. And we should this is one to keep an eye out for. Sorry.
Yeah, no, like that. So the one I was thinking of was like Stitch New Dog on turn 1, Lantern on turn 2, Shift Stitch on turn 3, seeing this, and then I don't know, there's probably you put down Genie on the Job or something, which could be a huge tempo swing, or maybe you put down Beast Relentless, something like that. So maybe there's a Emerald Amber deck with Stitch, the Queen, and maybe some other shift cards that are kind of cheaper just to give it that redundancy. My only concern is what happens if you don't draw Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo, you know?
Right, yeah.
Or if you just draw Stitch and the Shift Queen and you can't ever shift anything. Like,
yeah, it's definitely niche.
Yeah, it could be really powerful. I just don't know if all the pieces are there yet. Next we have Bounce, which is an action to cost an inkable. Return chosen character of yours to your hand to return another chosen character to their player's hand. What do you think, Dana?
I give this one a C. I think it will take a deck that is built around bouncing and is designed to deal with this card to make it playable.
Yeah, this is one that seems like it should fit really well into the Amethyst Emerald deck we were talking about earlier. Right, bouncing one of the Merlins that have really good enter the play abilities, and then bouncing your opponent's character can give you some like tempo and give you some extra cards or extra lore depending on which Merlin you're bouncing. Or maybe you bounce Lucifer, then you get your opponent's. Like imagine this. Your opponent has no cards in their hand, right? And you have a Lucifer in play. You bounce their best character to their hand with this, and you bounce the Lucifer back to your hand. Then you play the Lucifer, then they have to discard the character they just bounced back to their hand. Like, this is kind of niche. It's not inkable, so it's not very flexible. I could definitely see it being like a 2 of in some decks, so I'll give it a C.
All right, next we have Hypnotize. An inkable 3-drop action. Each opponent chooses and discards a card. Draw a card. I give this one like an A-B. Probably an A. I should, just because it's inkable, so it's pretty easy not to just have that in there. But you're basically getting double card advantage because you're taking one away and adding one to yourself. So I think that's just really strong.
Yeah, there aren't that many 2-for-1s that are this cheap in Lorcana. Like, Friends on the Other Side's the most comparable thing to this.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously better as a song. I do like this one. The biggest issue with that is that you can't develop the board the turn you play this. So you can kind of fall behind on turn 3 if this is your plan. But definitely in combination with some of the other discard effects, those really start to stack up. And it could be pretty good, especially if you have Prince John or something in play. So yeah, I'm going to give it a B.
Cool.
Alright, next we have Improvise. Chosen character gets +1 strength this turn. Draw a card. It's a 1-cost inkable.
So I had to look at this card's line of text kind of in 2 ways. I think the first half of that chosen character gets +1 strength during this turn. If it were to have just been that, I would have given this a D because it's just not powerful enough. But the card draw ability, anytime you can get ahead of cards than your opponent, I think that's strong, and it's a cheap 1 cost. So rather than a D, that second half of the line of text is making me bump it up to at least a C.
Yeah, I think if you're playing the Pete Minnie Mouse deck, this could probably be one of the better cards in your deck just because it's a cheap cantrip, which is another way of saying it's a 1-cost card that draws another card. So there's I think you have to have a reason to play this card in your deck, whether it's Pete, Minnie Mouse, like anything that is action based in order to really want this card. So I'll give it a C as well.
Alrighty. Next we have Pack Tactics, a inkable 4-drop action. Gain 1 lore for each damaged character opponents have in play. What did you give this one?
I'm going to give this one a D. Like, the biggest issue is that when you're damaging your opponent's characters, like, you're trying to finish them off, because the worst thing that can happen is if you don't finish them off and then they just say, well, Rapunzel, I'm probably winning now. So just the way the cards line up in Lorcana, you really have to challenge to banish your opponent's characters. And while this could work well with something like Grab Your Swords, because that can deal a lot of damage, like
Big Tink.
So what this card is good against, and I'm sorry if this is going to be long-winded, but what this card is really wanting to play against is a bunch of cheap small characters, because like that's the only way you're going to get enough lore from this card in order for it to be good, is if you gain 5 lore from this card, right?
And I feel like the only way that you would be able to do it is play against, like you said, a deck with a bunch of cheap cost characters, but probably pair the Emerald with Steel.
Yeah, but the issue with if your opponent has a bunch of cheap cost characters, they all die to grab your swords and Tinkerbell anyway.
That's so true.
So, like, you're not even getting... Like, they're all just going to die, so you're not going to be able to play this card for its full effect. So, what you really need to have happen is for your opponents to have, like, 4 mid-sized characters in play that are damaged. And I feel like if that's happening, then you're probably just losing, and this isn't going to help you win those games.
That's so true. What might is the next card, but again, still kind of niche. Ring the Bell. It is an action, inkable 3-drop, where you banish chosen damaged character. I gave the last one a C. I could see this one being a B, C, because again, like you said, we probably won't see a lot of characters just chilling on the board with damage on them, but I did have to give Emerald a little credit because, yeah, there's a little bit of a contingency to it, but this is like our first time seeing a actual like straight, well, I shouldn't say straight removal because it's not straight removal, but it's a removal. So what did you give it?
I'll give it a C. Because it's inkable, I can see some Emerald decks playing a copy or 2 of these. I don't think it's going to be consistent enough to play 4 of, but it is definitely a tool that will be used in some decks, I think. All right, and our last card. It is Ratigan's Marvelous Trap, a 3-cost uninkable item that has Snap, Boom, Twang. Banish this item, each opponent loses 2 lore. What do you think, Dana?
I could be really wrong on this. I gave it a C. I could see this getting splashed in a couple of decks, but I don't think it's good enough to play all 4 of. Especially because Emerald has so many uninkables already.
Yeah, if there is like some item that comes out where you can like maybe pay 2 and return an item from your discard pile to your hand or something like that, so you can keep doing this,
Yep.
then I could see this card getting play, but just having a 3-cost card that makes your opponent lose 2 lore isn't enough. But we saw this with like Aladdin Heroic Outlaw. If you can do that 2 or 3 times, that really adds up and it slows your opponent down significantly. But you're going to have to figure out a way to do that from just having one of these in play. Like, it's too expensive, and I don't know, like just drawing like 3 of these probably feels really bad because they're not inkable, so it's not that flexible. This one could get there. I think it just needs some help.
For sure.
All right. So, Ratigan's Marvelous Trap ends the podcast.
Yep.
Dana, it was really fun doing your favorite color with you.
Ditto. I definitely have my eye on some. I can't wait until we get our booster boxes this week because I hope to open up some of these that I really want to add to my deck. So,
man, I'm going to play the discard deck and you're going to be so mad.
Don't do that to me.
I'm just kidding.
Don't make this not fun anymore.
Not my play style.
All right. Well, next episode, we are going to be continuing and going down the line and covering the Ruby cards. So I know you tend to like Ruby.
Yeah,
I don't know if it is your favorite.
I think that one's my favorite color. I love Maui, love Maleficent. So I'm really excited
You
for
love
this
to
one.
Dragonfire me, that's for sure.
I love the Dragonfire you, yep.
All right. So with that being said, we hope you guys enjoy this episode and we hope you have a great week.
Appreciate y'all.